Good evening, lovely ladies and listeners. Welcome back to another Wamen Hour. We are a week late, and that is entirely my fault. I was very, very busy last weekend. We had our annual Steam Fair. Those who follow me on Twitter will know why I was away last weekend. But those who don't follow me on Twitter, the numbers are in for how much we raised for our Steam Fair. It was 6.7 thousand. Which is, we're very, very happy with that. Fantastic numbers. So well done to all for that. And a quick shout out to those who have supported me on Ko-fi, however you want to say it. I don't know how you say it. Because we've managed to buy a few tools for the allotments, which is great. So thank you so much for people who've supported me on there. Anything you want to shill, Turtle, before we dive into this topic?
Very unrelated, but if you like Magic the Gathering and marital banter, please subscribe to my channel, The Tilting Turtle. That's all.
Fabulous. And I have put links below the video, as I usually do anyway. But no, thank you for joining me. A bit thin on the grounds today, but we have got Poe joining us a bit later, fingers crossed. We're all busy. We're all doing random things. But this evening is a topic that we've been waiting to discuss on Wamen Hour for quite a while now, and it's wedding planning. And whose job is it anyway? Now, as we've just seen in the private chat, though, as soon as you say wedding planning, it just sounds terrible, gloomy, looking over you. It's like it's such a big job. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Oh, it was awful. Well, not awful, but I mean, a lot of things happened that I didn't want and that I didn't expect. So it was really about getting sort of front loading a good attitude about it before I had to start. So it was just not what I was expecting.
Yeah, I mean, was it things that you thought you would have control over that you didn't have, or
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. or details I needed to worry about that I really didn't care about. And when I had a lot of stress. My mother-in-law, for example, or then my future mother-in-law, I expected a small wedding, 20 guests maybe. No big to-do, go to a nice restaurant after, pay for everyone, gone. But when she found out I was getting married, she presented me with a long guest list of people that I didn't know from Adam. And I wanted to please her, so I invited all of them, which tripled the cost of the wedding. So it's that sort of thing, and not getting what I wanted, but wanting to please someone. And people have very strong opinions about weddings and how they should go. So I had to be flexible, and I had to keep in mind that the wedding will come and the wedding will go, and the marriage will happen after that. So
did you feel obligated, because it was obviously now your husband's family, but at the time obviously future husband's family, to kind of do as your now mother-in-law requested for the wedding?
Yes, I felt obligated because my position within their family was not solid. So I felt like I had to please them. And they were paying they paid for 1/3 of the wedding. My parents paid for 2/3 of the wedding. And because it wasn't my dime, I had to be a little more flexible, I believed.
Yeah. We will get onto the paying side of it at some point. But good evening, Poe. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, I don't know how I sound. I'm joining en route, so I didn't want to be too late. So at some point, I'll have to get out of my car and get to my computer, and then I'll be back in. It's going to be the most chaotic stream ever, but
no problem. We're used to a bit of chaos, so that's fine.
Everyone knows my background. I am married. We had something like a wedding, but without any of the guests and without any of the expenses. And I've been thinking about wedding planning in regards to basically saving for my two daughters to get married, which I've always thought was kind of an old-fashioned thing, the parents of the bride paying for it. But then I'm thinking, I'm so worried about our daughters becoming I don't know, putting off marriage or having bad dating experiences. I just think whatever we can do to make getting married easier for them, I'd rather just encourage it, monetarily or otherwise. So that's what I'm thinking about with regards to the stream. And of course your wedding, Birdie.
Oh, thank you. Yes, for those who don't know me, obviously I'm joined by both of you, both married women. I am getting married this year in October, so I am in the depths of wedding planning at the moment. I am stuck directly in it. Anybody watching this has just seen Tilting do that. Yeah, it's painful. I will say immediately, I don't have a maid of honor. I don't have like a lead bridesmaid or anything like that. And I don't have a wedding planner, as I know that's common in some places, and to hire a wedding planner and all this. But I don't have any of that. I am doing everything myself because I'm crazy. But at the same time, yeah, I do not plan on doing this again. So me and Alex are doing it the way we want to do it, really. But it's taking a lot of organizing, a lot. And so I'll jump into because we've covered it a little bit already, I will jump into the paying thing. So with tradition, it is sort of, I use the word tradition loosely. It's tradition for the bride's family to pay for the wedding. Now, when we got engaged nearly 2 years ago now, there is a reason we've stayed engaged for a while, and one of those reasons was to make the costing easier, because myself and Alex, or Alex That's Steam Guys, people know him on Twitter, we are paying for the wedding ourselves. We're paying for pretty much everything apart from my mum. I want to say mum and dad, but mainly mum really is paying for, or has paid for, my wedding dress and accessories, etc., to go with that, and makeup and hair and that side of things. And we have had some funds given to us by Alex's parents as well, so they have helped us massively, but the bulk of it is coming out of our savings. But in regards to that, I don't know whether it's still tradition for the bride's family to pay for the wedding. Now, historically, it would be down to the dowry, and that's why it's kind of evolved into being the bride's family pay for the wedding. That's where it's originally come from. But I remember when we got engaged, one of the first things I was thinking was, how are we going to pay for this? It was never, oh, my parents are going to pay for it. It was always, how are we going to do this? And we budgeted, got things together, and worked it out from there. Poe, you have turned off your mute, so I'm assuming you want to say something.
No, I just wanted to give some historical context about where the tradition comes from. I don't know specifically where it comes from, but looking into how the ancient Romans did weddings, the wedding would actually take place in the family of the bride's home. So the father of the bride, they would get married at the bride's house, and then they would have a procession. The bride would dress in white in those days too, and they would process through the streets with the entire wedding party walking all the way to the bride's new home, the bride and the groom's new abode. Where I really like that idea of that tradition, where you basically have to get married to someone who lives within walking distance of your dad. And it's actually taking place in his house, so it's like, of course he's paying for it, like he's paying for the feast, because it's actually his celebration. The parents would probably plan it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's what I wanted to ask about wedding planning is, if you had some help from, like, financial help from your in-laws or from your parents, would you allow them to take control over some of the wedding or all of it in exchange for getting it paid for?
No, absolutely not. I know that sounds harsh, but I think that's purely because we've, as I said a minute ago, we've kind of got our own ideas of how we want to do it. And as much as we appreciate our both sides' parents' input and opinions and comments on certain things, we have said no to I would say I've said no more than Alex has. I think she's probably Poe's disappeared. She'll be back in a moment. Mm-hmm. In terms of, I don't know if you've had this, Tilting Turtle, but when it comes to the parents having a strong opinion, as you said a moment ago, with your now mother-in-law giving you a list of people they wanted on the guest list, Now, Alex's mum openly said, at her wedding, she was showing us their wedding photos, and she openly admits that she doesn't know half the people who were on the guest list because it was her mum who did the guest list. Now, I really didn't want that for ours, because in the way I explained it to my parents, because my parents were being a little bit pushy in terms of, oh, we need to invite so-and-so's girlfriend or boyfriend that I've never met before, or they've only been with for 3 weeks. And I openly said no, because I don't know them. Alex doesn't know them. I've never met them. They've not introduced them to me. And they're going to be in family photos, photos that are going to last forever. I want to be able to look at those photos in years to come and say to our own kids or friends or whatever, that's such and such, and this is that person, and that's that. But, I do not want to look at my wedding photos and go, oh, who the hell is that? And that, and the fact that I come from a very large family anyway. Those who do know me know I come from a very large family. Those who don't, I am one of 25 grandchildren, and I am number 24 out of 25. Wow. So all the others are obviously older than me, and their kids are actually my age. So I grew up with both my cousins and my second cousins, and we did all stay in touch, which is great. I tell people, oh yeah, I stayed in touch with all of my family, and now I'm kind of like, I kind of wish I hadn't stayed in touch with you all, because now I'm inviting you all to my wedding. But that was another reason why we didn't have billions of plus ones. We physically could not fit them on the guest list, and trying to find a venue big enough to accommodate both families was chaotic. But we've managed it. It's a case of we've actually split it up in two, and split. We've kind of got a day guest list, so from beginning all the way through until the end, and then the evening guest list, which is just kind of like the party afterwards, to add a few extra people on and to add some plus ones in there, because it's less, it's more informal and you kind of relax a bit more, and they'll definitely have a few drinks in us by then. But yeah, I don't. And going back to Poe's question, because I think we're going to end up spiraling quite a lot on this stream and going down various different rabbit holes. Even though both parents are chipping in coin wise, I don't feel obligated as such to have to abide by what they're saying in terms of they want something. I don't feel like I have to say yes just because they're helping out with the wedding, because at the end of the day they chose to help out. I never asked them to. We never asked them to pay for anything. They openly said they wanted to. From the offset, as soon as my mum found out we were engaged, she openly said, I will pay for your dress. And she's helping out with the decorations now. And I haven't said, can you do this? So I mean, the only thing I may have a little bit of lenience, fair amount of lenience on, is like my bridesmaids are paying for their own hair and makeup, so. There's a bit of lenience there if you can basically do what you like, as long as it's within these sort of boundaries, obviously. But yeah, no, I don't feel obligated to do what they want me to just because they've helped pay for it. Absolutely not. What about you?
I was really lucky, still am lucky, that both of my parents are extremely easygoing. Even though they footed 2/3 of the bill, I chose my dress, I chose the color scheme, I chose the food, I chose, the decorations, I chose the music for the mass, everything on my own. And my parents were very supportive. They were not intrusive. It was important for me that my parents liked it though. Like, do you like this venue? Because I want them to be happy, even though they weren't sticking their nose in it. So I think the only thing, I feel so bad because I really love my mother-in-law. The only thing I regret was not sticking to a small ceremony and small reception, small guest list, because I felt like I had to please her because I was about to join her family. So that's what I regret.
Yeah, I do have to admit, when Alex's mom has suggested things, I do feel kind of awkward saying no. it's at the moment, it's more of a, oh, I'll think about it. And she knows that that's a no. Like I don't have to say no. She knows that I'd rather not. And she'll openly say, well, why don't you just say no? And I think it is because of that exact reason, is because even though she's known me for a while and we get on very well, I still feel like, yeah, but I'm not quite part of the family yet. You know, I'm still engaged to your son. I haven't married your son yet. So yeah, I still feel that, not obligation, but I still feel like I need to not upset her in any way, which I know isn't going to happen. But yeah, I completely know where you're coming from there. Poe, any comments?
Yeah, I was kind of curious to hear from Helen about if it was a Catholic wedding and what were if there are any kind of differences from what we would consider like the, I don't know, sort of classic Protestant or Anglican wedding. I don't think I've been to a Catholic wedding before.
I don't remember the details of Protestant weddings, except the Catholic wedding has the mass within it, where they do
you take mass.
Yeah, we had a Catholic mass for our wedding. I deliberately chose the most sexist readings to piss off my mother-in-law's liberal guests about wives submitting to husbands and that sort of thing. It was deliberate. It was deliberate, and David obviously approved. So yeah, I had my bouquet of flowers and I presented it to the statue of the Virgin Mary, like that kind of traditional Catholic stuff, and yeah.
What's the etiquette for guests if they don't take mass? Like, are they obligated to do it, or do they go and get like a blessing, or they just like stay in their seats, or everyone has to take it?
They can either sit in their seats or ask for a blessing from the priest, but they cannot receive communion.
Okay, that seems sensible.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting question, actually, Poe. I didn't really think of that, because I mean, we're having obviously a Christian wedding, Anglican, but there was something like, I wouldn't say I was Christian, whereas obviously Alex is. And when we were talking to the vicar, who's known both of us for a while anyway, she was saying certain things, and she was like, "Oh, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that?" And I was like, "You're going to have to explain it to me, because I've been to a lot of weddings in my time, but it's a bit different when it's your own. You're like, do I want to do this? Do I not?" And we'll have the whole kneeling and having the blessing and all that, and then they carry on, and that's just something I'm not used to. So I've been to weddings where they have done that. I've been to weddings where they haven't. I've been to weddings in village halls. I've been to weddings in registries. I've been to church weddings, and every time it's always very different. Very, very different. And it comes down to the churches as well, and what their traditions are, because each church does things differently. They've got different rules, different ways of.
Something interesting about secular venues, which my brother came up against, is that if you don't get married in a church, you can not only you don't have to be married by a priest, but or a vicar or any kind of clergy. It's actually forbidden to have any mention of God or Christianity in the service. I think he was even forbidden from mentioning it in the reception, because it was it's like the church is very protective about Christian ceremonies must happen in the church. Like, you can do whatever heathen ceremony you like, but you're not allowed to pretend it's a Christian wedding unless it's in the church, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that is a very interesting take on it. I mean, the running joke we've got at the moment, and I spoke to a couple of people on Twitter about this, is they're always being questioned, basically, not harshly. We're having a good discussion about it, and it was, why am I agreeing to have a Christian wedding when I'm not Christian? I've never been baptized. I don't really go to church. I'll go with Alex. And I openly said to them, I said, it's because I respect Alex's decisions. I respect his choice for that. And I don't mind. It's not something that I feel like I have to fake, or like I feel like I'm being forced to do. I'm quite happy to have a church wedding. I'm very much a traditional girl, as a lot of people know. So having a traditional church wedding does fit my idea of our wedding. But in the evening, for those who again, do know, for those who don't, it is in a, without giving away too much information, because obviously we're not actually married yet. It's in a hall. And I don't mean like a village hall. It's, I can say it's a medieval farm. So it's a very long hall with very long tables.
A barn?
And a fire down the end of it. A barn. A cob barn. So it's not a wooden barn, it's a cob barn with a thatched roof. Very big barn. So take what you will from that piece of information. So Alex gets his church wedding, and I get my my heathen barn, as it was said to me on Twitter, which I just found funny, and we both laughed about it. So did
anyone on Twitter call it the Longhouse?
No, but the house we are actually staying in, which is also located on said farm, is a Devon Longhouse. It's actually Devon Longhouse. So yeah, I'm waiting for the jokes to roll in. Do we have any more comments on that particular section, or should we jump straight into wedding planning?
Let's jump.
Let's jump. Okay. I will ask you both an easy question of, I say it's easy, we'll see what happens. What was the worst part of the wedding planning for you? What part of the actual planning did you think, I've had enough, I really don't want to do this, planning wise, not wedding wise?
I didn't like being inundated with details that I believe didn't matter. So Dave and I had our reception on a boat, and upstairs is where the bride and groom sort of hang out, and the guests were downstairs. Then we had to present ourselves, like woo, and when she was asking me questions like, who do you want to go first, the maid of honor or the best man? I actually said to her, I don't care. Like it's that sort of thing. I know they're just doing their job, but like I had to learn to make decisions really quickly for matters that I did not care about, and not to give them any thought. Otherwise, I would have become mentally exhausted.
Yeah, when we applied to get married in the registry office, they made us do an online form. It's probably one of the worst inventions ever, where to get through a form, you have to fill in every field, or the required fields. Like you can't just say like doesn't matter, like not applicable. Like you have to fill in every box with something. So for the form, just to get through to book the venue, we had to say who was going to be the ring bearer, who was going to be the camera person, and who was going to be the who was it? Like maid of honor, best man. Like we had to actually fill in a title for all of these. So when we invited our two guests, we told them on the day, by the way, you're also down to be the ring bearer, the photographer, and the best man. Is that okay?
If you don't actually have those, because we don't really have a ring bearer, and we don't have a maid of honor, and so what happens if you don't actually have those roles? Do you just?
It doesn't actually matter. That's what I think. That's what Helen is saying, right. Is that they just doesn't matter.
Need that information. That's just that's a waste of time.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I have to admit, I have found with the church wedding, it's actually been a lot simpler than I thought it would be, because we're going through reading out the banns. So because we live in one parish but grew up in a different parish, so the parish we grew up in is where we're getting married. So our banns will be read out there 3 times, but we also have to have them read out in the village we live in at the moment 3 times. That was the most complicated bit about it. Nothing else, because they both know us. They both know part of the community. Well, both part of both communities quite heavily. So they didn't question it at all. They're like, yeah, that's fine. No problem. We'll read it out. There was none of this. There's not really any paperwork. The most bit of paperwork we've done is when you write down your parents' names and occupations for the actual marriage certificate, for the marriage license.
That's a stressful bit too. Actually, now that you mentioned it, I'm getting flashbacks to like panicking about like what is my husband's father's job? Like he's had like 60 jobs over the years. Like, what are we gonna write down?
Who is this person? For those who are actually watching the screen, I am sharing some photos occasionally. So Turtle, this is you and Dave, is it not?
Yes, it
In
is.
the church. Lovely photo. So we're on about the Catholic wedding a minute ago. So
Nice.
here's proof. Proof to a Catholic wedding. So the worst bit for both of you was worrying about details. Well, having to sort out details that really didn't matter.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like I'm coming into that stage now. So I mean, this is I literally have a wedding planner. It's a fat ass book with everything in it. And I've got a folder behind the laptop as well that's full of all the paperwork. When I say paperwork, I think the most tedious thing so far has been like terms and conditions and the paperwork that actually comes from the companies, like the catering company and the venue have literally given me the T's and C's in like a folder. It's ridiculous. There's so much, and you have to make sure you read all the small print. And yeah, I'd say the really stressful bit so far has been the fact that the caterers and the venue are not refusing to work together, but are just being petty with each other. So we have to rent the glasses, some glasses, not all of them, but some glasses from the venue because the catering won't do it. But then the caterers will also refuse to clear the glasses at the end of dinner because they're not theirs. But then the venue have said they won't clear the glasses because they won't have any people spare. So I've basically come to the conclusion that because I'm lucky enough to be from a very large military family, you just shout a call out, say pick up a glass, take it to the bar, and it will be done in a matter of seconds. But the fact that there's that head-to-head already of, oh, I'm not picking them up because they're not ours, and I'm not doing it because we'll be busy doing the bar and clearing the tables away. That's not the kind of thing you need when you're trying to organize a wedding. For those obviously who have organized weddings, it is stressful. I won't deny that at all. Did you both find it stressful? Were you one of these really chill brides who just kind of wing it the whole way through?
I considered myself to be a very easygoing bride. Again, I was talking about front loading a good attitude to it. I did not want to be a bridezilla because I've had bad experiences with bridezillas. One, even I was her bridesmaid, she forced me to wipe off my lipstick because she was worried I would look prettier than her. So like,
whoa,
monstrous.
No way.
Monstrous. So I did not want to be like that. I wanted to be easygoing for everybody. So I had to approach it with flexibility. I had to approach it with gratitude, and not to be wedded to the fantasy of how I wish it would turn out. And I had to be okay with things maybe not turning out the way I wanted. Like my mom showing up 10 minutes late and holding the mass up for 10 minutes, you know? So yeah.
These are all things I'm terrified about.
It's like, let it go. I'm still going to be married.
Let it go. Or as my dad says, do a Frozen and let it go.
Yeah, let it go. And you know what? The guests will not remember this. This is just another wedding for them, you know? So just like that sort of thing. And I was easygoing, I believe, about my wedding, which really helped because and also to not view the wedding like it's my day. I'm the princess. It's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's not about me. It's about my husband. It's about our families coming together. It's about our community witnessing something wonderful. Yeah. And that took off a lot of pressure as well, having that attitude.
That very, very well said there, I have to admit, because the amount of times the soon-to-be mother-in-law has said, well, no, it's your day. And I'm like, no, it's our day. It's our day. It's both of us. And like you say, it's about our families coming together, and the amount of family members who have actually come to me and not just said, you know, thank you for inviting us and old friends and things, but have actually said, no, it would be really nice to not just be part of your wedding, but to actually be part of the group again, to be with everybody else and celebrating a really nice time. Because the running joke at the moment is the last time we all came together in a big family group where there was nearly all of us there was at a funeral. So you know, it's actually nice to be able to get everybody together for a nice event, and the community are coming together. And you know, I've had family friends as well openly say, you know, I know we're not invited, but is it okay if we, you know, sneak in the back of the church just so we can see you? you know, and I'm now kind of at a point where I'm like, yeah, sure, you know, I'm not going to say no to that. You know, there's people in the town who I know for a definite will either try and sneak in, or they will stand, because the church we're getting married is in the center of the town. You cannot miss it. So whenever there's a wedding there, everybody can see you.
So my mum has told me, I don't know if this is true, or maybe it's just an old-fashioned thing, but she says that a wedding service is a church service. Like anyone can come.
It is.
Like
It
anyone
is
who's just
public
walking
service.
past your wedding can come to it if they want to.
They can.
I was taught the
technically.
same thing. Weddings, funerals, people can come in and sit in the church. You know, they don't own the church. You know, so
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they can't close the church off for a private event. They're not allowed to do that because it's a public house. You know, household. It's not a pub. Yeah, no, that is absolutely true, Po. Anybody walking past can quite openly just walk in. And I have been to weddings before where people have done that, but they have been respectful, and they have, you know, sat at the back, or sat, you know, where they're not necessarily going to be noticed. I don't really have a problem with it. I think I'm just overthinking and thinking there are certain people who I wouldn't want to come, if that makes sense. You know, like people who I'd rather just stayed away because I can't be bothered to talk to them on the day. I've got enough people to be talking to, which I know sounds harsh, but when you've got, you know, people who may see us on the engines on the weekends, or who come to our events at the trust, and you know, people we see quite a lot in town but aren't necessarily friends, they're just sort of acquaintances who we see a lot in passing. It's kind of a, you know, I respect you for coming, and thank you for showing your respect, but at the same time, like, I don't want to start feeling guilty because I've not made them part of the day, if that makes sense. I don't want them to feel like I've not included them. But, you know, some of these people, I won't even know their names, but I know for a fact that they're going to be there because they've told me. They've point blank said, oh yeah, we're going to be there. Okay, fine.
You know, I've when I was a teenager, I used to sing in a church choir that did weddings. They would pay me £3.50 to sing at a wedding on a Saturday afternoon. And so I've sat through like lots of weddings, like probably more than most people. Like I've been to so many weddings, and I always waited for someone to just come in and like shout object at the part where you're allowed to object to the wedding. You know, this woman is already married. Yes, I know that. It's just no one ever does it, and you can because it is open. Anyone could come in, and anyone could just stand up and say something in the service. But no, it never ever happened.
Well, you hope
such a disappointment.
You hope it doesn't happen. It's not a disappointment. You're making me worried now, Posh. You're like, I want this to happen.
It would be yours would be the first. Yeah, I think I'm just saying it's the hallmark of a high trust society that you can have a public wedding. I mean, it's not really public, but technically it's public.
Yeah, and it's not advertised as public, but
but weddings, you know, they could just be disturbed like every single time, but they're not. So it's
and it's having the trust that, you know, random people turn up to your wedding and they don't just follow you back to your venue, because there's not actually much stopping them doing that, because you've got hordes of cars and people going to the same place. You know, you could quite easily just follow the crowd. Although we would find out pretty soon, because obviously with table plans and all that fun stuff, which we will move on to, I think, which is the other bit that's stressing me out. I have not sorted out the table plan yet, purely because I haven't got all the invites back, which isn't, I don't see that as a problem. I've got about half of them back so far, which isn't bad. So I feel like I could start doing it. But did either of you have the family politics with any of it? So you'd have either a cousin or an aunt or somebody or that you just couldn't put together for whatever, not necessarily because they hated each other, but perhaps because, you know, I'll use an example of two of my cousins, and I love them both, but I mean, one of them unfortunately can't come because he's going to see his wife's family who are actually in China, and they can't make it any other time. But he he's a bit of a wind-up merchant, but he's also very, very intelligent. Now, I couldn't sit him anywhere near one of my other cousins who is a vegan. Now, the vegan cousin will never back down about why she's vegan, and she will come out with all sorts of comments in the politest way possible. And the other cousin will basically egg her on, and it just ends up in this massive debate, and they'll be there for ages, and somebody ends up in tears. The rest of us find it quite amusing, to be honest. But that sort of thing is ridiculous, and it's the sort of thing you shouldn't have to deal with on your wedding day. So there is a little bit of family politics going on in terms of like, I can't sit that person with that person, and mixing up the families. Like, how did you both do it? Did you have formal tables? Did you go out for a meal? What was your sort of thing? How did you do dinner? Is that the easiest way to put it? How did you do tables?
Well, if you let me go first, because my answer is very quick. I don't want to go into any like names or situations, but the whole family situation was going to be so complicated and so stressful. It was one of the main reasons why we didn't basically have a wedding. Like, we didn't invite people to the wedding, is because we didn't want to have any politics about who was invited and who wasn't. So in the end, it was just easier to not invite anyone, pretty much. But I can definitely see why it's just who to invite, but then also once you get the invitations back, the RSVPs, where to seat them. I expect is it's an important. You'd hope that your friends and your nearest and dearest would put aside their sort of petty grievances for your sake, but it's just too it's not even worth thinking about. So trying to arrange all that, I don't envy you.
Yeah, I mean, I think as I said earlier as well, because I've got such a big family, it's a case of the only sort of, not disagreement as such, but myself and Alex have had past comments over it, is my family is almost double the size, if not triple the size of his. We have over 100 guests invited we've got 132 invited for the whole day, and 80 odd of those are just my family. There's a lot. I can see Helen's face like, oh my God. There's a lot. And yeah, I have had comments of, why don't you just not invite them? And my answer to that has always been, because I want them to be part of my day. I'm not planning on ever doing this again. So I want my family, extended family, the family I grew up with, because I grew up with my cousins and my second cousins. We were all very, very close growing up. I want them to be part of our day. But on the other hand, we have joked and said, let's just go to Gretna Green and let's just do it. Because it's taken so much organizing. It has taken basically 2 years. But that's because we've taken our time with it, which has really helped. We booked our venue very early on, which I was so glad of, because they have now upped their prices. They've changed a lot of their rules. Our wedding is obviously out of season, so it means we got the price for less as well. And because we booked it so far ahead, we got it for less. Same with the catering. We booked that in plenty of time. The church we spoke to in plenty of time. Invitations we got out plenty of time. Things like that we've kind of just really spread out. But yeah, the family politics it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be honest. And I think that's because of previous weddings that I have been to, and you hear horror stories all the time. I mean, like you said a minute ago, Helen, was it one of your bridesmaids saying to take off your lipstick?
She was the bride. Yeah, she told me to take off my lipstick.
Yeah. And just comments like that, and it's not needed at all. You don't need that. You're supposed to be enjoying your day. And the only thing I would say that I've done similar to that is I've banned my sister from wearing white shoes. She was adamant she wanted to wear white shoes, and I said no. Obviously my shoes are white. I will be in all white. You can wear any other color shoe but white. Which apparently was a problem, but it's been sorted now.
Speaking of Bridezilla, I
thought
there was this moment on our
30 you're being a Bridezilla.
no, I think it's all it's all relative, right? I mean, on like I said, we were a very small wedding, so after the wedding, we all just got in one car and like drove off to go have a meal and get drunk. And I had already, like, one of the things that I actually planned meticulously was making this playlist to put on, like, through the car's Bluetooth, just while we were driving around that day. And when we went off to have a little honeymoon, we were going to listen to these, like, like songs that were romantic and happy. Yeah. And we were in the car, like, on the way somewhere, and I was telling the guys like how much I liked making this playlist, and and I was like explaining the significance of each of the songs. And then my I suppose by default she was the maid of honor, sorry, said that she didn't like the song, and that she wanted to take the look at the playlist and like choose the next one. And I was like, no. Like, this is like, just let me have this. And then everyone in the joke, like, everyone in the car, like, had a moment, like, rolling their eyes, like, oh, look, get a hold of Bridezilla over here.
Yeah. I think that's the worrying thing as well. Like, you don't want to be called Bridezilla at all.
Yeah.
Now I know I've had to be a bit stern with my bridesmaids specifically. I've only got 2 bridesmaids, so I might have a massive family, but I wasn't daft enough to have millions of bridesmaids. I was like, no, I'm having 2. My best mate from school and my sister. That's it. I'm not. I had suggestions of friends' kids and my young cousins and all sorts, and I just thought it's going to be really complicated to try and sort that all out. And I have had to put my foot down a few times and remind my sister specifically. I love her, but we are like chalk and cheese. We are completely different styles, completely different tastes. We are like 2 separate people, obviously. But she, when it came to a few things, well, bridesmaids dresses specifically, I had to keep reminding her it was October. Don't wear, like, I don't want them in pale colors because it's an autumnal wedding. We chose specific colors, and that's just what you do. If a bride says to you, these are the colors you get to choose from, you stick within that range. You don't start wandering off and going, well, actually, I prefer this one. And it's like, okay, but it's not your day. And I have had to find myself a few times reminding a few family members specifically, not really friends, actually none of my friends, just family members, that it's not their day. And I've actually had my soon-to-be mother-in-law tell certain people as well, going, it's not your day. And it's embarrassing in some ways, because I don't want to be seen as, oh, you're being Bridezilla. But at the same time, we're doing it the way that we want to. And I have had to use Alex as my secret weapon and kind of say to my bridesmaids, well, actually, Alex likes this one. So, if they're not going to listen to me, I'll just bring in the groom and be like, well, actually.
What would be the disaster? Like, if you just let them have their way for everything, surely that would like be less trouble for you, right? Trying to manage it all. So what is the, like, you want the photos to look like the way that you like, or you want the day? Is it the actual day you want to be?
Yeah,
as you're imagining.
A bit of both. There's certain things that, we all imagine our wedding day to be a certain way, right? But I've already come to realize that there's certain things that have changed along the way, and that's fine. You kind of go with the flow, and that looks better than what you thought it did, or it looks worse than you thought you did, and you kind of swap and change things. But I think if I had just let them do what they want, I think I would have been a bit irritated, because it would be my sister is just going as herself, not as my bridesmaid and as my sister for my wedding. So it'd be, we've got the autumnal color scheme, and because they're part of the bridal party, we've done the same with the ushers. We're giving them the same ties, so we know that they're part of the main party. My bridesmaids are there to help me throughout the day, and the groomsmen, or the ushers, are there to help Alex, and then all together they're there to help us perform the day as we'd planned. And I think that's become really apparent because we've got such a large guest list that it's basically going to be like herding cats. So having the bridal party and having them will stand out in a way, but be easily recognized to the other side of the family, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, so you know, Alex's family can easily recognize my siblings and my friend from school, and my family can easily recognize his siblings and that sort of thing. So if there is anything they have a question, you know, where's the bathroom? They know who to go to. You know, all these daft little questions that do come up, or oh, do you have the directions to this place, or you know, is there anyone we can car share? You know, all these questions that you don't want to go and ask the bride and groom, but you can ask the parents or the bridal party, because they can easily be recognized. So that was my sort of thought process behind it. That, and obviously the photos, because I used to be a stylist, so I mean, when it comes to having things styled, I'm like, it's an autumnal wedding, so I want you in autumnal colors. Yeah, it would look odd because I would know for a fact that my best friend would go in the color or colors that I preferred, whereas my sister wouldn't. She would go in a color that she preferred, and I didn't want her just looking like one of the guests. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Anything to add to that?
I only had one bridesmaid. And all I did was I told her the wedding colors. I'm like, pick a dress in one of these colors or all three, and you can have your hair and makeup done whatever way you want. Probably because I wanted to be the exact opposite of the bride who told me to wipe off my makeup. But going back to your issue with family and dealing with that, I was lucky that I did not have any of my extended family at my wedding. Logistically, like we lived on the west coast of North America, and my family was all on the east coast of North America. So having them make quite a flight for like a niece or a cousin that they haven't seen in 10 years wouldn't have made sense. And plus, my mother does not get along with her siblings either. So, yeah, so I didn't have to deal with that. But with seating arrangements, like I made sure all the single people were in the same table. Young families were in the same table, but I didn't have to deal with any of that family drama.
Yeah, I mean, that is quite useful, I have to admit. Jumping, I'm going to quickly skip on because Helen, you've got to head off soon. So that there is one topic that I want to cover before you run away, and then Poe, we can carry on if you're happy to carry on with the rest of the random topics that all come under wedding planning. So I want to jump into wedding rings, engagement rings. We just finished ours. What did you do for your wedding rings?
Well, I inherited both of my rings. My engagement ring was from my grandmother, and she got the ring from her mother. But there was a kind of interesting story of my when my grandmother was a teenager. It was weird to hear about this because it mirrored very closely something that happened with me, where she felt very guilty about all of the like wealth that she'd grown up with. Not that she was extremely wealthy, but just like globally, finding out about all of the sort of hungry and impoverished people in the world. She felt very bad for having all of these like lovely expensive things, and she wanted to sell everything that she'd inherited from her mother, including her jewelry. And her family like wanted to support her being sort of moral, but also didn't want her to lose this sort of heirloom. So her sister bought the ring from her, and the money went to charity. And then years later, when it was time for my grandmother to get married, my grandfather he tells a story about how he got the day off work to go and drive up country to go and pick up this ring from his bride to be's sister. to buy it from her. And that was their engagement ring, and that's the ring I'm wearing right now, that I've worn every day since we got engaged. So it was such a special ring that I didn't want it to be like just my engagement ring. I've been wearing it as my wedding ring since we got married. And then very recently, my mum gave me her wedding ring, which she said doesn't fit her anymore. Which I guess you're supposed to wear it for your entire marriage, but she's never been very traditional. So I'm wearing her wedding ring now, as well as my grandmother's engagement ring, which I think, obviously it saved a bit of money, and I feel very pleased about that. Having a real diamond ring without having to pay for it is certainly fun, but also it is very nice, and it is just a reminder of that continuity of family that I think is one of the main points of marriage, is to have this lineage of continuing the unbroken chain of marriage and family that goes back for generations.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice that you've got, like you say, that sort of heritage and sentimental value behind it as well, which is really nice. I've just put the picture up that you sent me earlier, Helen. These are your rings.
Correct.
So tell me about these. Have you got the engagement ring and the wedding rings there? Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, the engagement ring is the one in the middle with an enhancer around it. So it's really two pieces. And then the wedding ring to the right, and Dave's obviously to the left.
So how did you come by these?
When he took me engagement ring shopping, I actually wanted a much smaller, cheaper ring. He said, no, I'm not going to spend that little. So I'm like, okay, I'll take this one. There's really no store. We bought it all straight from the jewelers. I didn't like white gold. I like yellow gold. So, and I don't like giant solitaires that would, you could scratch up someone's face with. I like the sparkly clump of diamonds, and that's why I chose it. And I try to have David's ring look as similar to my wedding ring without the diamonds, which is why he has sort of the silver band in the middle. So it's really an aesthetic thing, but unfortunately no family lineage or story to go with this. Just going to the store and picking and choosing what we liked.
But again, you chose them together. So am I right in saying you chose the engagement ring together as well?
Yes.
Yeah. See, that's really nice as well. You chose them together. And I think with wedding rings, that I have found so many people have different ways of coming by them, whether they just go to the store, English jewelers, and get them from there, or as you say, Poe, they're passed down through the family. That's still a story there. Was it a specific jeweler you went to, Helen, or was it one that you just liked and
we just found it in the mall and walked in?
That's fair enough.
The American way.
That's really nice.
To take it back to traditions, the tradition of a woman, the wife wearing a ring, goes back to Roman times, but only for the wedding. I think engagements have become a bit inflated over the years, in length and also in sort of complexity. So it seems the engagement ring is something that comes back from I think Victorian times, or just a bit more recently than that, where the engagement ring is the symbol of the man's dedication. The idea that he's supposed to spend a quarter of his yearly salary on a ring is a sign of commitment, that he's already invested in you as a partner, and that he's kind of claimed you. You're no longer on the market.
Claimed.
These days, the dating goes on for so long that we consider people kind of firmly off the market if they've got a long-term boyfriend or girlfriend. But I think you don't even have to go back that far to think of when fiance or husband was really the as firm as it got. And if he hasn't even committed to you, then you're practically single.
Yeah, absolutely. Helen, are you wanting to run away?
Yeah, I just wanted to say goodbye. Stick around and say goodbye.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for your lovely images and stories and comments behind wedding planning. Tilting Tale, your links are below. They are below the video, so go and follow. But thanks,
Alan. Good to see you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And then there were two.
Is this you, Birdie? Your hand in your ring?
This is my hand, my ring. This is my engagement ring. Now, we chose this together. So Alex basically said he was going to propose, and I didn't know when. So we decided, instead of trying to go through the palaver of trying to figure out what size ring I was and what I wanted, because I do wear rings most of the time anyway. I've got a single gold one that I haven't taken off in years, that I have an indent on my finger now. I don't think I can even get it off anymore. It's wedged on there. I haven't got this one on at the moment because I was at work today, so I did not wear it at work. We chose it together. However, when we went into the shop, so we went to a jeweler, and it's a small family-owned jeweler in Tavistock. So obviously a town that's very dear to us. I don't mind saying his name because it's a wonderful little shop called Baldwin's in Tavistock. If you know it, brilliant. If you don't, highly recommend. It was actually the owner's son that made this ring. So all of the rings are handmade. They're all their own designs. But when I went in there, and Alex delights in telling people this, I said to him that I was looking for emerald and white gold, or gold. Because I'm very pale, as people know, very pale woman, and I know that gold does suit me. I can get away with wearing gold, and it was a metal that I knew I was comfortable with. I know it's durable, and we came away with this, which is actually platinum, with 2 diamonds.
Wow.
And tourmaline. So the stone is actually tourmaline. Now, Alex didn't give me a budget, which I was terrified by, because I was constantly like, I didn't want something ridiculously expensive. You know, I'm not one for, oh, because it's really expensive, that means I have to have it. You know, I'm same as both of you, really. I don't like the massive stones and the things that stick up so much that you're terrified to wear it. Don't get me wrong, I do love wearing my engagement ring, but because of the nature of my job, and because my boss has such a young baby at the moment, I am terrified I'm going to scratch somebody with it, or I'm going to crack it or something, which I know isn't actually going to happen. It is a very durable ring.
I literally had nightmares about this when I first started wearing a ring with diamonds in it. I was like, I had nightmares where I looked at it and the jewels would be missing, and I'd be sort of scrambling around the floor trying to find them.
Absolutely. And I think I do have an emerald ring, and it's very, very small. This tiny little emerald ring that I do have, and the emerald itself moves in the setting, which terrifies me. So I think
that is scary.
I had that past trauma already from that one, and it is a really, really tiny little emerald that's cut into a heart, but it does move. I really need to take it to a jeweler and get that sorted out. But this one is incredibly robust. But it was basically the opposite of what I went in for.
Well, it's green and it's white gold. It's a white metal, so you know.
it's still sort of what we were going for, and I do adore it, absolutely love it. And the amount of people who've actually said, "Oh, your engagement ring isn't traditional as such. You know, it's not diamond, it's not gold, it's not." You know, as soon as you say engagement ring, you think white or a big rock. You know, the amount of people who've shown me their engagement rings, and it's just a diamond. But my favorite color is green, as a lot of people know, and I do like a bit of sparkle, so it was perfect, really. And what I found hilarious is it was in the house for about a month, I think, maybe 2 months, and I had no idea where Alex had put it, and I was really I saw it on the day, and then it was sent off to be resized, and then Alex picked it up and he basically hid it, and I had no idea where it was. And then he told me afterwards that he'd actually hidden it in his bookshelf like behind his books, because he knew I would not touch his engineering books and his naval policy books. I wasn't going to go anywhere near them, so they were tucked behind them, which I did find quite amusing.
I've got a little tip for Alex or any other fellas watching. If you're trying to find a romantic, quirky gift for like an anniversary, you can get rings professionally cleaned, which I think is a kind of nice. It's a nice token. I don't know if you sort of steal your woman's ring or just tell her that you know what you're planning, but just to brighten it up, because if you wear it every day, even if it doesn't look dirty, it just gets more dull. You know, that ring, your ring is beautiful and new, so it looks really like shiny. But over the years, it'll very slowly start to dull.
Yeah, and absolutely. That's a brilliant idea, Poe. That's a really nice idea. It is true though. We went to a wedding fair, and I actually had my engagement ring cleaned, and I was disgusted. And I was like, how is it that dirty already? But even just washing your hands, you know, the soap that gets stuck in it, and just every day wear and tear, it does happen. It does happen. So I've put another picture up here. Here's Alex. People know him anyway. So people who do follow me on Twitter saw what we did to the story of wedding rings. Now we went to a wedding fair, and we met this wonderful woman called Becca, and she did a few things. She's got, again, independent jeweler, but this one is actually 40 odd minutes from where we live. So we got the engagement ring from the town in which we grew up and were getting married, and the wedding rings we've got where we live now. So we've got both sides of the story. But we actually made our own wedding rings. And when I say made them, I quite literally mean made them. They gave us a strip of metal, and she walked us through it. It took us 5 hours. But we did absolutely everything, from the shaping to the cutting to the molding to soldering, hammering, absolutely everything, polishing, you name it, sizing. We did everything from start to finish. And it wasn't just a case of we're making our own wedding rings. Obviously, Alex being an engineer and me making jewelry in the past, it both just massively appealed to us. But it was just us and Becca, and it was actually our last anniversary together before we get married. So that's the wrong way. Let's go that way. There we go.
Yeah, very nice.
After all that, see if I can zoom in. There we go. That's better. Zoom in. So after all that, we made our rings, which I've got displayed on screen now. For those who...
I really like how they came out, and they're very very individual to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that was the most fun part of it, is, you know, the fact that we've made them was really nice. And, you know, we could shape them how we wanted and have them fit exactly how we wanted. It was a really nice experience. And, you know, having Alex putting the shape in the front of his, and the reason I've got a dip in mine, one, because it adds a bit more interest, but it also fits perfectly around my engagement ring.
Yeah.
So engineer brain comes out of yes. So is that
the traditional way to wear it, is to wear the engagement ring and the wedding ring on the same finger? Yes.
Yeah. So
makes sense.
Actually, on your wedding day, you're supposed to put your engagement ring on your other hand. And I've already got a ring on there, so that's going to be very interesting. But once you're married, you've got your wedding ring on, you then put your engagement ring back on to your original ring finger. So that's the traditional way of doing it. But I knew I would obviously want to wear my engagement ring again anyway. As I just mentioned, I absolutely love it, so I am going to wear it again, obviously. But I wanted it to fit, because at the moment, obviously, I can't wear it with any other rings. So I wanted it to be able to fit around my wedding ring. And I do like a bit of shape in my rings anyway. So that was just a nice way of doing it. And it is such a subtle little dip that I put in there. It's barely noticeable when it's lying flat. But it's just enough so it fits around it, and put the hammered texture in, so it's quite literally unique. I mean, the photo I showed a moment ago, this one, Alex is actually hammering the texture into his ring there. So it is very much personal to both of us, which was really nice. It was a great experience. So for anyone looking for wedding rings or engagement rings, or even just a present for your missus, I would definitely recommend making a ring if you can. The other thing that this specific jeweler does is, my boss actually did it. I only found out a few days ago that they got their wedding rings from the same place, which was quite a shock, because I didn't realize that they'd done that. They didn't make their rings, but what they had actually done was sort of similar situation to you, Pose. They were given some rings and some jewelry from their grandparents and their parents, various gold items, gold chain that grandma used to wear, and grandma's old wedding ring and things that they wanted to give to them. And they actually melted it all down together, so it was kind of like both families' jewelry being mingled, and then they were then turned into 2 wedding bands, which is another very nice way of doing it. Obviously, if you don't mind melting down your old jewelry, but that was another quite nice way of doing it. So there are so many different ways of doing these things. When people just say wedding rings, it doesn't have to be boring.
Can I give you some historical context on wedding bands as well?
You can.
I already mentioned about the woman wearing a ring goes back a very long way, but it's only really in the last 100 years that men have started wearing wedding bands. And the funny thing about that is that they've actually written it into the vows. With this ring I thee wed, is something that you say when you put the wedding band on to the other person. But men didn't used to wear a wedding band. Actually, I think Prince Charles doesn't wear one, and I don't think his sons do either. Sorry, King Charles now. Excuse me.
King Charles.
I'm going to be doing that for the rest of my life, I promise. It's something that a lot of people think is just obligatory, but actually, men wearing a wedding ring is sort of much more optional than obviously, like, there's no ring police who's going to come after you if your ring isn't the right shape, or if you don't wear it on the right finger, or you don't wear it at all. But even traditionally, it's allowable for men not to wear it.
See, I didn't really think about it, because as you say, now it's a lot more common, but I only really noticed recently that there's a couple of men who I do actually know who don't wear their wedding rings all the time. And it's not always due to work. It's not always down to that at all. Sometimes it's just a case of they're not used to it, or it's not comfortable yet. So I obviously wear an engagement ring on my ring finger. Is something I've sort of had to get used to. But I do have a small sort of silver ring that Alex bought me for Christmas. And I do find myself actually putting that one, and it's flat, it's sort of the same sort of flatness as this one. And I do find myself wearing that one quite a lot to try and get myself used to having a ring there, because I'm like, oh, it'll be there all the time. This one I've had on for, oh God, how old am I? About 14 years now. Yeah, about 14 years, because I had this one when I was young. So I've never taken it off. So I've gotten very used to it being there, to the point of I don't remember it's there anymore. I'm just, I don't feel it. So I'm like, I kind of want to get to that stage with my wedding ring. But obviously, you have to get used to a piece of jewelry being there all the time. I do wear, obviously, you can see I do wear pieces of jewelry that are in, and various piercings and things that are in 24/7. So I'm quite used to having jewelry on all the time and being used to that, and quite quickly adapting to that. But even so, for men specifically, it's not quite as common. And actually getting used to wearing a piece of jewelry 24/7 every single day, or at all, is quite a jump for quite a lot of people.
That's actually what I've taken to asking men after they get married. You know, everyone wants to hear about the wedding and everything, but you know, I kind of figured they're sick of talking about that, so I just ask them like, "Have you got used to the ring yet?"
Yeah, absolutely.
Something else. I think I probably told this story before, but I actually told a fib just now when I said that I've worn the ring ever since we got engaged, because when I was pregnant the first time, my fingers started to swell quite a lot. My fingers and hands were very swollen, and it gave me some pain to have to take off my ring. Like, I was worried that if I left it on too long, it would get swollen on there and it would never come off, or it would become like
you don't want to damage it, and absolutely.
So I kind of took it off before it was too late, and I went and got this very thin silver band just to put on that finger, so I didn't feel like I was single again. But it was a really fun little sort of ring shopping trip. Like, it wasn't a really extravagant ring; it was just a placeholder. But it felt you don't really get that many like fun little errands to do in a day. So getting to have that excitement of wearing a new ring again was exciting. And then, of course, the excitement after the baby being born, and then the swelling going down, and getting to wear my ring again was very nice.
Yeah, it's not something you really think about, is it? Things like if your hand swells, or like you say, when you get pregnant, your hands change. I remember my mum fell over and broke her hand, and it was one of the first times I had to try and yank her wedding ring off her finger because it just swelled up so much. And it's similar to mine. Like, if I can't get it over my knuckle now, that's how far it goes. I've had it on for that long. I've got a dip now. You get that sort of dip in your finger when you've had rings on for so long. And I remember that on my mum's hand when I got her ring off for her, and of course her hand was swelling up so much anyway. I was terrified because I was like, "This is your wedding ring," you know. I was trying to get it off, and I just felt so wrong taking it off her. I was like, "Oh no, this just feels wrong." But it's one of those things. I see it as a. Do you think it's a sense of pride having a wedding ring?
Yeah, I think of it as it's like a little piece of our it's like a little piece of my husband that I take with me. It's always there because I'm always married, like whether we're fighting or whether we're in love, whether we're together or apart, doesn't matter how far away I go, I'm still always reminded that he's my husband, and
one.
Yeah, basically.
Absolutely. Are you happy to run over, Poe?
Sure, a little bit, sure.
So there's a couple of things I still want to cover. So invitations, dresses, and after party. I want to jump onto your after party because you didn't have your traditional dinner as such.
You're going to show the picture now.
I'm going to show the picture because it's brilliant. And for those who are watching, I feel like they need to see this. Very lovely, smiley image of you.
Yeah, just so much champagne, really. Like, I don't know if you've ever done an escape room. I thought, I think of myself as quite a logical, like, puzzle enjoying kind of person, and that really suits to like board games and puzzles, and escape rooms are kind of a really fun day out, like a special occasion. Me and my family or me and my friends will go do an escape room, like a new escape room. Like, it's such fun. And I thought like it was actually a spontaneous thing that we just sort of drove past this place and it was open and they had a slot available. So it felt like a really, a really lucky.
So was this directly after the wedding? Did you already have that plan, thinking that's where you were going to go, or was it?
So we planned to go to a restaurant to eat. So it was a kind of center of town restaurant where there were shops and other businesses open during the day. It was on a Thursday, by the way, which saved us some money and meant that nothing was really too busy. I just took the day. I took the Thursday and the Friday off work, but because no one knew that we were getting married, I couldn't tell them why I did it, and I just said I'll tell you on Monday. And I think they kind of suspected already. So we went to an escape room, but I was so drunk, I don't think I helped at all. Like, it was just it must have been so embarrassing for my friends who were just doing the puzzles, and I was just like, oh, this is so fun. But we did it.
You did it. And I'm assuming
we escaped the room.
You escaped the room, but you're here now, so you escaped the room.
And they, of course, didn't know that we just got married. They just thought that we were a bunch of, friends hanging out.
But I think that's quite nice though. I feel there's so much like pressure if you say to somebody, oh, I'm getting married, or I've just got married, and then everybody bombards you with questions, and you kind of, as I said to Alex, I said, you know, as much as I'm really looking forward to the wedding day, I think I will actually have some relief when it's over.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, then you'll be married. That's the whole point, right? It's like,
yeah, you'll be married. It's done.
That is the thing you should be looking forward to.
Yeah, no, exactly the point. So I loved this when you told me this. I thought that was brilliant. Just sort of sneaking away to an escape room. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know if you're in danger of having too much, hitting the champagne a bit hard, but it's easy when you're celebrating, I find, to partake a bit too much in the champagne.
I'm a bit concerned because both of my bridesmaids are terrible influences. I know for a fact if I ask for a cup of tea in the morning, it's going to have something in it. So
I think what I've heard from people who've been married, got married in a big wedding, is that they basically don't have fun in the traditional sense at like everyone else gets to have fun at your party, but you basically have to talk to people all night. Like you will not get a chance to take a bite of food or to go and do a wee. Like you will not be able to eat a single piece of cake. You'll just be talking to people who want to wish you well, who are there to see you.
Poe, you know me, and for a fact, I like my food. I also like to have a bit of I can't dance to save my life, but I like to have a bit of a dance when I've had too much to drink. And I like to enjoy myself. And the way I see it, it's basically a big party for me and Alex. And I've kind of said, you know, all the formal stuff will be at the church. It will be when we're doing photos, and that's when we'll kind of talk to people and have a catch up. Because the tables, it's not, as I mentioned earlier, they're sort of two very long tables with us at the top table going across the top. And by very long, I mean very long, the full length of the hall. So there's no room for, you know, it's tradition at big weddings again to sort of go around all the tables and say, you know, hello, how are you doing? Are you enjoying yourself and all this? And I'm not going to be doing any of that. I have full trust in all the people I'm inviting to enjoy themselves as much as we are, you know, and I'm kind of hoping that if they see us enjoy ourselves, then they will too, because I've been to a lot of weddings where it's been quite formal the whole way through, and you feel like, well, you know, the bride's not dancing, so I'm going to hold back a little bit. You know, I don't want people to hold back. I want them to enjoy themselves, have a drink, catch up with your family, have a dance, you know, relax. I want everybody to relax. And the reason we've got a sit down meal is so that we can do that, you know, so everybody does have a chance to eat, so that everyone's taken care of. And then in the evening, you can let loose, you can relax, you can have a dance with us, and it's not formal as such, you know, because as you say, the amount of large weddings, you feel obligated to make sure everybody's happy and everybody's having a good time, and make sure you talk to every single person. And I won't be doing that. So I will put, if anybody is listening to this who's coming to my wedding, I am so sorry if I don't speak to you on the day. But, you know, as I said, we're going to try and speak to everybody at the church because that's where the formal bit is, as far as I see it. And then all the extras that are arriving in the evening, you know, most of them will most likely come and find us because we've sort of set a rough time in the evening, but it's, you know, some people will sort of filter in when they want, and it's, you know, some of the guests plus ones that I've never met before, and then extra friends coming in from elsewhere and that sort of thing. So it will be very relaxed in the evening, which I'm hoping
we'll be doing speeches.
We are doing speeches, but that will be during dinner, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Before we cut the cake, we'll be doing speeches then. So that, you know, sort of formal. That's the sobby bit. Everybody cries. You know, you've got to have speeches.
Tell me more about the cake. I want to know what. I mean, is it a surprise? Like, what's in it?
It's not a surprise. No. I think everybody who's had the invitation knows anyway what's in the cake. So we've actually had to have two cakes because we have a few vegans coming. Dare I say it?
Well, no, I'm glad you're not subjecting the rest of the guests to the vegan cake. That's good of you.
Yeah, I could have just said, "Oh yeah, it's vegan." It's actually not. Yes, no. I hope they're listening because they're costing me a fortune. Yeah, so we've technically got two cakes, but we've got a main wedding cake, which is a Wimbledon cake. Now, a Wimbledon cake is a classic sponge, so vanilla sponge with fresh cream and fresh strawberries. Nice and simple.
Yeah.
Not too heavy, because the amount of times we've been to a wedding and you're like, I really want to eat the cake, but you've just fed me tons of food. The classic, and I'm like, yes, but I want the cake. So it's a nice, refreshing cake, and we both love it. And it's just wholesome, traditional. None of this tons of fondant stuff. It'll just have a few flowers on it, because it's all going to be cut up and demolished by all the guests anyway. And the vegan cake, actually, so I will say both of the cakes are being made by my good friend and my boss where I work. She's an absolute gem, and she makes some fantastic cakes. And in payment for the cakes, I am doing her garden for her, doing the gardening and looking after baby when they're when they're down at work. So that's payment for the cake, which it's taken a massive pressure off us, because as I'm sure you're aware, wedding cakes can be incredibly expensive. Especially when you're feeding so many people. So
I think not having a cake was probably one of the most painful things that we gave up for our cheap little wedding. The only thing I really wanted that I really regretted not doing was my father giving me away down the aisle. And are you doing that tradition?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
That's all right. We've been jumping around. You're talking about the party. I just forgot to bring it up during the ceremony portion. No, that's lovely.
Yeah. So that's the other sort of trick we've done. So not only are we saving a lot of money on the cake, we're actually having the cake as the dessert. So instead of having 3 courses, we're paying for 2 courses from the caterers, and then the cake is the dessert.
Makes sense.
Which, because again, you want wedding cake, but you just had a massive meal, and you end up wasting it. And I do not like seeing cake go to waste. I like the cake. And the vegan cake, because my boss is a genius, she came up with a recipe for a vegan ginger cake. Now, you cannot tell that it's vegan. You can't tell. She doesn't use any fake things, alternatives. She just uses regular ingredients, if that makes sense. So she doesn't she doesn't use.
No, I've made a vegan cake.
Like
you need to add fat using, I think, oil usually. But it can be very delicious.
But it's the best ginger cake I've ever tasted, and you honestly wouldn't know that it was vegan. Which is very useful. So that's the other cake we're having. But I have found that even though I put it on our menu choice for the guests as the vegan option, the amount of people who have actually said, oh, I want the ginger cake instead of the Wimbledon cake is driving me insane, because now I'm like, it's going to have to be almost the same size as the same wedding cake. So I'm like, oh God, this is going to cause carnage. But we'll make it work, as we do. We make it work. It'll be fine.
Did I tell you that I went to a vegan wedding? Like, all of the food was vegan.
Wow. How was that?
I like a bit of protein and a bit of fat on my plate. So, like, I loved the wedding. The dessert was really good, actually. They had some vegan donuts in a big stack, like a tower. They were really delicious. But my daughter was the only person at the wedding who was eating meat, because they got like some fish fingers and some chicken nuggets and chips for the kids meal. So it was her and a few other kids who were eating. My husband was eating some chicken nuggets off her plate.
But I quite like that they have catered for the kids, knowing that they might not eat the vegan food. I mean, we're having the amount of people who laugh at this, but it's an October wedding. We're very traditional people. Our main meal is quite literally pie and mash. So proper pies, none of this casserole with a lid on it. None of that nonsense. Thank you very much. No, proper raised pies, pastry all around the edge, proper buttery pastry, gorgeous. We have tried them and they were absolutely stunning. You've got the classic chicken and veg or a steak and ale, with some roasted veg and some mash. And what more could you want after a very long day?
Yeah.
You know, it's a long day for everyone. You know, you
Mhm.
want some decent food, and you know, the way we saw it was you want people to be fed and ready to go for the evening, because the last thing you want is people to have a big meal and then, or have some food and then just start flagging in the evening, thinking, oh, I'm done, I don't want to do this. So we've been quite strategic with what the way we've sort of planned things out and the timings of the day. So with the meal, you know, everybody sort of sits down, you have your starter, you have your, and the starters, oh, I've lost Poe. Oh dear, she's disappeared. We'll carry on talking anyway. The vegan options for the wedding have been absolutely chaotic. They've actually cost us a bit more than we were expecting. So we had to add a whole extra option just for the vegans. So instead of just having 2 options for 2 pies, we had to have a third. But it was actually a jackfruit and ale pie. Hello, Poe.
Once again, failing to join the stream using my phone, but I'm just going to stop touching the screen.
Stop touching buttons. I was just explaining the vegan option for the main course for the wedding. So it is still a pie. So you've got the steak and ale and the chicken and veg, and the vegan option was actually a jackfruit and ale pie. Now, have you ever eaten jackfruit? Have you ever tried jackfruit?
I don't believe I have.
It's very strange. It does have the texture of like shredded beef. It's very odd. It's slightly sweet, but it's not so sweet that it shouldn't be savory, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But so the same catering company are doing a jackfruit and ale pie for the vegans, and it was very nice, actually. It was very good. But it just made me laugh because on our invitations, we'll move on to invitations after this, but on our invitations, it does say, you know, jackfruit and ale, and then I think I've written the VE sign for vegan next to it. And the vegans who've come back to me and said, oh, I'll have the vegan option. And I'm like, did you actually read the menu? Or are you just assuming that we can make a vegan chicken and veg pie? Because that's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a case of, no, we're putting one vegan option on. That's what you get because you're costing me a silly amount extra to put this extra option on. Which that's been the most frustrating part of this. You know, I want to cater for everyone, but at the same time, like, will you please just eat meat for one day? Just eat the same as everybody else.
Just cut up some carrots for them, you know.
Yeah, just here's some mash and some roasted veg. But before you left, I was about to say the starters for the starters on our menu. Again, we've got 3 starters. The vegan one was a heritage beetroot salad, which sounds very posh. It's not. It's quite literally just some very nice heritage beetroot. So basically, for those who don't know what heritage beetroot is, it's all the different coloured beetroots, and they all taste slightly different. But it's very nice, quite light. The other 2 options. The amount of comments have said it just sounds like a 70s party, because we've got prawn cocktail and pate and toast for the starters. Nice. And so many people that, you know, you can't go wrong with those 2 options. You know, everybody will like either one or the other 9 times out of 10. Keep it simple. So yeah, that's the menu. Wholesome food. We've veered off cakes again. I do actually have a photo of Tilting Turtles cake. I will put that up for reference. But yeah, we're not having any fondant or anything on our cake because I don't know if you've been to any weddings, Poe. The wedding cake has just been basically all fondant and no cake.
Yeah. All decoration, no substance.
There's Helen's cake. It's lovely. There's a lot of decoration on there.
Yeah.
But it is nice. It is nice with the flowers on the top. Very nice. And simple as well. It's not too overly done. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be cut up and you're going to eat it. Should we move on to invitations?
Yeah, you know, when you mentioned talking about invitations, I remember that when I used to sing at the weddings, as I mentioned earlier, there was a wide variety of different orders of service that you could get that we'd all be given the order of service in the choir to tell us what the hymns were and what the words for the hymns were. And there would be like cardstock and ribbon and little flower decorations and kind of what you got there. I don't know if the invitations
that's not mine.
people
this
if they also double up, like they do your orders of service as well.
Yeah. So Helen did tell me about these before she ran away. So we both had a similar take to this. We both made our own invitations because it was cheaper and it felt a bit more personal.
Yeah.
So we wrote ours out. I will put my camera back on and show mine in a moment. But as an example, this one's Helen's, and she said she stuck them all together herself, put all the ribbons on herself, which is great when it's a smaller wedding, is all I will say. It can get a little bit tedious. Let's see if I can find mine. I've got mine sat next to me in my ridiculous book. Did you have invitations, Poe, or did you just kind of
no, just like WhatsApp,
you didn't do that. You did the WhatsApp.
All this wedding planning stuff. I have this secret plan to reveal to you. I don't think anyone watching this is gonna care, but I have a plan to have a wedding for our 50th anniversary party, or like maybe not 50th, like 40th, like whatever feels right at the time. I'd really like to have like a big, like not wedding, but like a big party for like our anniversary, like maybe like a location wedding, and just have all of our kids and hopefully our children-in-law and maybe even grandchildren to have like family to celebrate without all of the let's hope without all of the drama that comes with the reasons that we couldn't have a wedding. We chose not to. We're going to have more money when we're older. We're going to have more family when we're older. We're going to have a big family that we always would like to invite to everyone to the wedding and bring everyone that they love as well.
Absolutely.
So I still am, even though I'm already married, it's almost like I kind of do plan the kind of wedding that I want to have one day when I'm 60.
Yeah, you can have that celebration without the worry of the legal part.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a really nice idea. I've strategically covered my name with this one, but we made our own. Let's see if I can hold that up.
I love the wax seal. Is very nice
did
touch.
A little wax seal, so it's a little teacup. I don't know if you can actually see that. My camera is not very good. Little teacup with some flowers coming out of it. Obviously we put a band on it as well. So we quite literally came up with these pictures ourselves. Again, covering, I don't know if you've seen my first name, but not my last one. So all the birds and the flowers we put together and did a bit of playing there with all the colours. And this is basically the colour scheme of the wedding as well. So trying to keep it all together. And then we did it in a double. Again, I'm just trying to cover up any major information that I do not want people to see. There we go. I'll cover that bit. So it does, opens out. You've got all the fun stuff there. You've got the pictures again on the background. So yeah, we did everything ourselves. We even wrote up the RSVP, put it in. I'm not going to show you the address, but obviously envelope with our address on it, just to make it easier for people to be able to get back to us, which was a little touch that has really helped.
Definitely.
Because you've got so many people, just being able to just give them an envelope with your address already on it, so all they have to do is stick a stamp on it and stick it in the post.
No, I can imagine trying to get answers. People just like send you a WhatsApp or a Facebook or an email, and then it's like trying to collate all of those, and then like some of them are a maybe, or like we might come, or we might bring so and so, and then just having it on paper, like this is definitely it. Like this is what you signed up for. You told me this is who's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm covering the bottom because it has my contact details on it, but we included an extra information sheet as well for guests to save exactly that problem of I didn't want to be bombarded by phone calls and emails and texts of can we do this, can we do that, or where's the accommodation, all this. Because of the nature of the site, we've put one, 2, 4 things on here on this one. So, you know, there's camping, so where they can camp, information about that. The information about the +1s, we've quite literally written, due to venue capacity, cannot accept +1s. You know, things that I don't want to be dealing with later on down the line. You know, the reason we've only invited X amount of people, and then we've written it on there. Dress code, another one. Dress code, because again, the amount of weddings I've been to where they don't tell you the dress code, and you sit there panicking. And it's like, what is the dress code? Is it formal, informal? Is it black tie? You know, what is it? And just to take that pressure off people constantly messaging you of, you know, what is this? What is that? I just put it all in the extra information sheet. Yeah, you know, everything in the middle. So it's just made it nice and easy in one A4. It was quite literally a slightly smaller piece of A4 and strategic printing.
Yeah,
and we managed to do all that ourselves, and then just making a little band to go around, hold it all together. Yeah, I mean, it was quite nice being able to do that, to make it a bit more personal. That, and when we were looking at invitations, because that was one thing my mum said she would pay for is the invitations, and all the companies we looked at and all the styles and things, there wasn't actually anything that we really liked. There was nothing that jumped out that said, you know, that's what I want. So we just took it upon ourselves to make our own, and we set up a production line and did all the printing, and then I sat here and folded them all out, and Alex wrote all the names on, and yeah, it was fun making them. But it gets to a point where now, you know, if you find out like somebody's hasn't arrived and where is it and all this, and then you start sort of panicking because you've got all your personal information in there and it's lost somewhere in the country, or some of them are in different countries. So it's like, right, now I have to make another one and send that out. So I have actually turned to sending the email form. So I've actually got the e-invite for those who haven't actually arrived or it's been damaged in the post, and I've just sent all the information to them via email because, yeah.
Makes sense.
There's only so much you can do. But, you know, people go mad with invitations, I think. You can really go crazy with invitations, and yeah, I mean, it is tradition in my family to keep the invitations from each wedding. So I was like, well, I want to make it something that everybody's gonna like, that they can keep. What's your opinions on save the dates? Because obviously we did send out save the dates, and our reasoning for that, again, I just made those ourselves. I don't think I have one here, which is kind of annoying. But it was just a sort of little A5 piece of card with our names on it and the date. And at that time, we didn't actually have any more information other than the date of the wedding. And the reason we sent out the save the dates is because, one, massive family, and two, we have a few members of the family in the military as well, and abroad. So being able to send out the date so early on has really helped with that. So obviously, we got engaged nearly 2 years ago, and we had set the date within a few months of that. So we could get the save the dates out super early.
Yeah, you know, it makes sense, especially in your case where you've been so thorough with providing details that you wouldn't necessarily have known as soon as you knew the date. Makes sense to just send it round. But I mean, I guess the save the date could have been a WhatsApp, but it's nice that you made it a personal touch.
I think if I did it via WhatsApp, my phone would have exploded. But I do admit with the save the dates, I didn't actually send out as many. So I sent them to kind of the heads of the families, so the main sort of aunts and uncles, and then wrote all the names on the back.
That kind of reminds me of a funny story, actually, where my cousin got married a few years ago, and she sent an invitation to my parents, you know, her aunt and uncle, but the invitation didn't specifically name me and my brothers. So although we kind of thought, well, they probably wouldn't mind if we turned up, we haven't been officially invited, so we don't know if it's going to be a big wedding or maybe it's going to be a really small wedding, and that's why they haven't invited us. So we ended up not going, only to find out that they were like, well, where are they? Like, didn't you bring them?
I find that really awkward. You know, if somebody says, oh, you can come to the wedding, or they do exactly that, you know, I want to know if I'm actually invited. I don't want hearsay, especially because I know obviously more now, but even back then, I know how much planning goes into a wedding. You know, some things you have to know exactly how many people are coming. And other things like for our evening guest list, it doesn't really matter. We can have up to 200. So we're kind of just like, just turn up. And we've just said, because we've done a separate evening invites, again, with dress code, what time to arrive, you know, when the music is and when to leave, basically. And just saying things like, you know, there's no food provided, but there's a bar there and whatever. Very simple information for people. And again, the exact names of who's invited, whether that's just the adults or adults and kids, or, you know, plus ones, whatever. It's those kind of details I think are very important. Looking at the time, should we move swiftly on to dresses and share a lovely photo you sent, Poe, for your simps?
Thank you for the simps who made it this far into the stream.
For the simps. See, if they've made it this far, then they deserve this photo.
Showing a bit of saucy ankle there.
Got some ankle out. Oh dear.
And some knee.
And the knees. Look at the knees. No, this is lovely. So tell me about your dress, Poe.
Oh, although it may not seem like it, I looked at hundreds and hundreds of dresses, and when I say looked, I mean I browsed through them on my phone. I basically just wanted to wear something white, you know, on my wedding day, even though it wasn't going to be like a proper wedding. Yeah, I kind of thought, well, I've got to wear something to the wedding, so it might as well be a white dress. So I bought this just maxi. You know how fashion websites let you filter by color and by, you know, style. So I basically looked through about 12 different dress websites, filtered by white maxi dress, and then I found this kind of bohemian style, just floor length embroidered pattern. And I guess the only other notable thing about it, it cost £30, which I felt I was kind of getting away with something, in the sense that, you know, I was saving myself several £1,000s. But, you know, now thinking about it, I think I would have rather spent a bit more to get something that wasn't made in a sweatshop. You know, these days, if buying cheap clothes just makes me like, I just think about the like Bangladeshi teenager who probably made this in like a dark factory. You know. Yeah. So apart from that, I was pretty pleased with it. I've still got it in the attic. I wore it in a video, actually. If you ever watched my video about, I think, like femininity and about like the female hero archetype, it was like a nice sunny day, so I put on this dress.
I never realised that was your wedding dress.
And I sat in a field, in a meadow of daisies.
Right. That's fantastic. And I have to point out, are your shoes flat?
They're pretty flat. That's I can't really walk in heels.
Very smart choice. I have shown you sort of snippets of my dress, but for obvious reasons, because I'm not actually married yet, and I don't know who's going to watch this, I cannot show my dress on screen.
Yeah, sure.
It's white, I'll tell you that much. And I will say my shoes are very comfortable, and they're the second hand, as is the dress. My boots cost me, because they are sort of like Victorian style boots, basically, white.
Very nice.
They cost me £25.
Vintage?
No, I don't think they are. I think they are a remake. I would say they are definitely a remake, because they are in fantastic condition, and they were from a previous bride, and she wore them for her wedding, and then she sold them on. But she did admit she didn't wear them for the whole day, so they're not real leather on the inside, but they're kind of that what do you call it, like the fake leather stuff that still behaves like leather, not quite pleather, but you know what I mean, that sort of material. So they do need sort of wearing in a little bit, because they are a little bit stiff. And I did say to her, I said, that's the reason you couldn't wear them all day, is because you had to warm them up, you had to actually wear them in. when I'm going to be able to do that, I don't know. I'm because my mum has them, so I'm kind of like next
you don't
time
have any superstitions about the
yeah,
groom seeing you with your boots on
exactly.
before the
I'll
wedding.
send him out for the day, and I'll just have to walk around in the shoes in my mum's house to try and wear them in a bit. But the
only other thing I wanted to say about the dress is that I, being just some probably poly cotton blend from the internet, I had to iron it before wearing it. So we spent the night before the wedding separately. We stayed in different places so that when we met together in the morning, it was to get married. We were like going to get married together, not quite like seeing each other for the first time at the aisle, nothing like that.
But spending the night apart is
spending the night apart just makes sense. So I spent that evening like just watching Netflix and ironing this dress, like trying to get every single wrinkle out of it with the ironing board.
I bet that was more stressful than
happy memories. Yeah.
But that's quite. Do you remember what you were watching on Netflix though? That's the question.
It's embarrassing. Do I have to say? I have to say it now. I've said it. I was watching the episode of Friends where Monica gets pregnant. Sorry, where Monica gets married.
That's quite wholesome, though. That's wholesome. Watching something about a wedding when you're
I had a wedding on the brain, so exactly. I was just like, something. It really made me. I hadn't seen it in years. I used to love Friends when I was a teenager, when it was on Channel 4 all the time. Yes. So I took a very long break. And I kind of always fondly remembered that episode. I'm thinking of it as romantic. And then when I went, I watched it again, and I was like, usually I don't laugh out loud if I'm watching something on my own, like completely alone in the house. Yeah. But while I was ironing this wedding dress and watching Friends, and I was like really laughing out loud. It was so good.
Yeah, but that's nice. I feel like the night before the wedding, you have to be relaxed. That you can't be worrying. That sounds perfect. No,
it was quite therapeutic. It wasn't stressful getting the wrinkles out. It was just sort of nice. Just getting there. Nice. I've got all the time in the world. Just stand here with this iron and watch Friends.
Yeah. See, this is where, because I was very interested to learn about your dress, because mine is quite different. In terms of, as I've mentioned before, I did fashion design and styling in college, and because of that, it's driving me insane. But because I have got a seamstress, and she is wonderful. She's a fantastic woman, and she knows exactly what she's on about, and we just click because we both kind of know what's happening with this dress. But it was a secondhand dress, so I bought it again in Tavistock. In a shop called Bridal Reloved. I don't know if you've heard of that sort of shop brand, but they sell secondhand wedding dresses and dresses that are they only do wedding dresses. So wedding dresses that are no longer in stock, or they no longer make that design, that sort of thing. So they're all either like minimum 50% off the original retail price. So they are quite significantly reduced. Now, I don't mind saying how much, I won't say I paid for it, but I didn't. My lovely mum paid for my dress. So my dress was actually £750. Now, for a wedding dress,
that's pretty good, yeah.
That's pretty good. The amount of dresses, because I did go to a big bridal shop before that, and the dresses were over £1,000, and it was terrifying. It was quite, it was almost fun trying on these dresses, but everyone I tried on, I was just very nervous, because I was like, but this is a lot of money to be walking around in, and I didn't feel comfortable, and they weren't exactly what I wanted, and I was going to have to make tweaks and do various things to them. It's very rare that you actually find a wedding dress that is 100% perfect. 9 times out of 10, you're going to add something, take something away, change the bodice, add sleeves, take away sleeves, change,
make it yours.
Make it yours, exactly. So my wedding dress will actually be finished next weekend, which I'm terrified about.
That's exciting.
So it's exciting, but I'm kind of like, oh god.
So did you do the whole wedding planning with your bridesmaids, or has it been just you and maybe your mum?
It's mainly just been me and Alex, to be honest. I've kind of gone through.
So he didn't come dress shopping with you, but did your friends go with you?
No. My mum came to the first one, and then the second, because I only actually went to 2. shops until I found my dress. I was very lucky to be able to actually find it only on the second try, because I'm very fussy and I know what style suits my body type, should we say. Because I'm a bit of a pear shape. So I knew I was looking for an A-line dress, definitely A-line dress. And I do like to have my back covered and that sort of thing. And the amount of dresses that are sheer or backless, exactly. And it was a nightmare.
Can I ask, have you done like the sitting down, I don't know what you call it, like a flume, the sit test? Yeah. Like what's the sit situation?
Very important that you do that. I'm sure, well, obviously your lovely ankle photo here, you are quite literally sitting down. But if you do go, for anyone who is looking for dresses or perhaps didn't do this, you're daft. You definitely need to do the sit test. It's more important to do the sit test after you've had it fitted, because I mean, bigger dresses. So mine has 3 layers on the skirt, and it has got a train, but we are putting, I can say, so I'm saying these things in confidence because Alex does know about these bits, so it's okay. So the train on it, it's not massive, but it's enough to drag in the mud, basically. So I am having a bustle put in, which it's not actually heavy at all. I was expecting it to be heavy and be a nightmare, but it's really not. So naturally, I've done the sit test. I've crouched down. I've tried putting my shoes on my own, with the dress on in the seamstress shop, which is a good test, because even though I will have somebody helping me on the day, it is quite a good test to be able to see how much you can move in it and making sure the bodice isn't too tight and all this, and you're not ripping stitches when you're moving around. And of course, as I said to my seamstress, I said, she said, "Do you want it any tighter around the bodice?" And I said, "No, I need some pie room. I need to be able to eat." So yeah, the amount of people who get it fitted and then on the day they're like, "Oh, it's too tight, I can't breathe." And a very good tip for anyone, not just wedding dresses, but any dress that you're having altered, or a heavier dress, or even if it's your prom dress is a good example. When you're trying on your dress or going to have it fitted, so put your dress on and wear it for 10, 15, even 20 minutes, in either not a cold room. Make sure it's a comfortable room or even warm room, because the material will warm up and it will loosen. So the amount of dresses I've seen or been to other weddings, and the brides, you might have seen it yourself, Bo, and other people might have seen this. If you go to a wedding and you constantly see the bride pulling their dress up because it's slipping down or it's not comfortable and they're adjusting it, that is exactly why. So it's because it's warmed up and it's actually starting to drop. So when I first went to the seamstress, I was just stood like a bit of a lemon in the in the seamstress shop for a good 20 minutes with a dress on that did not fit me at all, and it dropped significantly. We had to take the shoulders up. I think it was about 3 inches on each side, and actually lift the whole dress up because it was so big on the shoulders.
Good tip.
Yeah. It was crazy, the amount that it actually dropped, which then affects, how long the dress is, of course, and how comfortable it is. So, yeah, and always do the sit test. You want to be able to be comfortable. There is nothing worse than wearing something you're not comfortable in. You're wearing it for a whole day. I don't understand the brides that have a dress that they go and then take off in the evening or they change into something else. I'm like, no, I will be wearing this from 9 a.m. in the morning until midnight. I will have it on for a significant amount of hours, so it needs to be comfortable. I need to be able to move in it, and even daft little things that men don't think about. Going to the bathroom, okay? You need to be able to go to the bathroom without having it kind of irritates me and say, "Oh, your bridesmaids are there to help you go for a wee." No, they're not. No, I need to be able to, go to the bathroom on my own. I am not a toddler. So comfortable, be comfortable, for Christ's sake, just be comfortable. Don't be silly. You can still look stunning and be comfortable at the same time. Don't worry about where it's tucked in everywhere else. And if it's a decent dress, or it's the shape of the dress suits your body type, then you will look absolutely fine. Bouquets are a godsend if you're trying to hide something.
What have you got to hide?
I have nothing to hide. Nothing to hide.
Are you going to be chucking the bouquet?
I don't think so. I thought about it, but yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. I haven't even got a bouquet yet, which is really bad. That's on the list of the next thing to do is find a bouquet for myself and my bridesmaids. I think bouquet toss is fine if you have like a tight sort of round bouquet and then you kind of toss it. But I'm looking at more of a flowy teardrop shape, which will probably take someone's eye out if I threw it. Yeah, what do you think of bouquets and bouquet tosses, Poe? What's your...
I think I've seen it happen in films, but I've never actually seen a real wedding where that happens. I don't know if it's like an American thing. It's just I don't know. I don't know if they do them. I mean, what are you supposed to carry it right up to the moment you throw it? Like, do you have to tell people I'm about to throw it? Like, it's like I just hate the idea of having this like spontaneous moment become like an orchestrate. Like, 11:15 is when we're going to have the bouquet toss.
You have to organize it, right? You have to say like, oh, this time is a bouquet toss, and then it's
no, like if it's a spontaneous moment where you genuinely are like, I'm sick of holding this and there's some people over there, like I'm going to chuck this to them, like that would be like a fun thing. But there's so much about like the wedding, like that becomes like this organized fun, like you must participate in the bouquet toss.
Yeah, so I've kind of got the idea as well to use my main bouquet as a table decoration, so it can actually go on the top table. And be part of
put it down.
I can put it down, because what are you going to do with it else? Where is it going to go? When you're actually getting married during the ceremony, you pass it to one of your bridesmaids or your mum. That's you just kind of hand it away, and then they give it back to you when you walk back again. And of course, then you have it for the photos and things. But yeah, I mean, bouquet toss. I think you're right in saying it is a very American thing. I have been to a couple of weddings where they have done a bouquet toss. I was quite young at those ones, I have to admit, so I didn't actually participate. But it was carnage, they're like, oh yeah, it's great fun. I'm like, they're literally pushing each other over to get this. And I'm like, really? Someone's going to get hurt.
It's fun, Birdie. Come on, let them have some fun. Let the girls get rough with each other occasionally.
It would be carnage, absolute carnage.
If you're not trying to get it, then what's even the point of doing it?
You don't want it, yeah. If you're not trying to get it, you don't want it. I'm probably not going to do that. I have to admit, I'm probably not going to do it. I'm also aware of there are a couple couples that are coming to the wedding who are imminently about to get engaged, should I say. There's definitely 2 that I'm aware of. So it's kind of like, right, I'm not gonna do that, because then I feel like that then causes carnage for them as well. So it's like, because I have that knowledge in the back of my head, I'm like, but it should go to that one or that one. And I think I'm just gonna avoid it completely. Did you have a bouquet for your wedding?
No. I mean, not against it. I think flowers are very nice. Just not a detail really needed.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like smaller weddings as well, it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say not as important, but again, where are you going to put it?
Right.
Yeah, it's if you're not having a sit-down meal, or you haven't got extra people, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where you kind of have to have meat. You have to tie it into everything else. You have to plan where your flowers are going. These are all the little details we were on about earlier that stress you out more than the actual main event. Where am I going to put my flowers? Daft things like that. Who's going to hold my tissues? I should have asked my teachers to put pockets in my wedding dress.
I almost sent you a picture. I didn't want to. I felt weird about sending you pictures of other people at our wedding because they didn't give permission to be on a live stream. So I didn't give you the picture of me crying at the, when we got married. I don't want anyone to think just because it was a small wedding, we didn't spend much money on it, that it wasn't an emotional event, because
of course it's going to be emotional. It's your day.
Yeah, just sobbing, tears, like ugly crying. And I was like, I didn't have any tissue. Is definitely a good idea. I ended up stealing the pocket square out of David's pocket.
Yeah,
it was it was like a hanky. I don't know why I didn't think of oh yeah, I'm not gonna cry. I'm such a stoic.
I'm definitely going to cry. I know I am, and I'm going to give a stash to my mum, and hopefully she'll just be able to sort of backhand me one, and I can just sort of gently dab away the tears. But that's definitely not going to happen. I don't know if you've seen the craze that was going around a while ago of people putting sort of shorts up, and it was practicing the gentle smile for my wedding, and then it actually shows the actual photos, and they're just beaming, and it's these horrendous laughter, and that's definitely going to happen. I feel like it's the same with crying. Like, no, I'm going to gentle cry, and it's not. I'm going to be an ugly crier, and it's I really hope that my makeup will be fully secured and waterproof, because
it's really a shame that all of the details. I wasn't even thinking about planning or anything, but just the spectacle of it, being so conscious of being center of attention, even for a very small number of people.
Oh my God,
was so nerve-wracking. I found myself not listening to the ceremony. I would miss bits of what was being said, because
all eyes are on you. It's like, oh God.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be taking this solemn vow, and I can't even focus on the words that are being said, because I'm worried that I'm not standing the right way, or I'm going to look ugly in the photo.
Yeah, which it's a ridiculous notion, really, when you think about it, because there was a meme that went round, and it was, it's great, I'm having my wedding day, it's fantastic, and then it's underneath, it's like reality kicks in that you're going to be center of attention all day, and it's just like this deadpan face of terror, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it. I'm really looking forward to it, but at the same time, I don't want to be in the limelight. The running joke we have in my family is growing up, I always used to say, what are you looking at? Why are you looking at me? When I was a child, that was, my dad does it now, so I know exactly where I got it from, because if I look at my dad, he's like, what are you looking at? As if nothing, it's not malicious, but it's just that instant sort of, why are you looking at me? Instant, and it does go into your head, like, why are you looking at me? And that's a running joke in my family at the moment, because that's all that's going to be going through my head all day is, why are you looking at me? Stop looking at me. And I'm like, but of course they're going to be looking at you, you're the bride. That's the whole point. So that's my biggest fear, is being center of attention all day.
I went to a wedding where the bride actually forbade us from looking at her when she walked into the church. It was like a rule.
Great.
The vicar at the front said, and the bride has asked if you can all keep your eyes towards the altar while she walks into the room.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm gonna have to put blinkers on and just try and stare at the altar and just keep my eyes on Alex, and just ignore everyone else next to me. That's my idea, is just completely ignore them, because I know for a fact if I start looking at people's faces, I'll break down before I even get to the altar.
Right.
So I'm like, no, I can't look at them. I've got to keep a straight face. They keep going, just smile and try and walk. Because it has been said many times that the walk down the aisle, or to whatever it may be, to the altar as such, to actually go and get married, stand by your future husband or wife, is the most nerve-wracking walk you will ever do. Because you're suddenly so conscious of how you walk and your steps and how fast you're going. And
that's why they get your dad to go there with you, the most down-to-earth person in most women's life.
Yes, giving you away. And it's another running joke in my family is me and my dad are incredibly clumsy. We've both got two left feet. I said to my mum, you're sending both the two clumsiest people in this family down the aisle together. It's a terrible idea.
That's funny.
It's silly little things like the grates in the church. Have you ever heard of this one?
Yeah. The heating grates. Yeah.
I am terrified of those.
You're not wearing stilettos though. You said you're wearing comfortable
I'm not wearing
shoes.
stilettos. I have got
You'll be okay.
comfortable shoes. They have got a little heel, so I'm hoping that they don't get stuck in those. But yes, yeah, those we did laugh and say you'll know when we've arrived because we'll trip up the step and hit the door before they open it. So, but yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those things. Touch wood, it's never actually going to happen. But you do think of all these daft little things, and you worry about everything so much.
I think I said this before, but as of all the weddings I've been to, the start time of the wedding is always delayed by the bride's arrival. And I mean, obviously, I was never really a guest at the wedding, but I'd have to say that nobody's going to really notice if your hair is not perfect or your makeup is not perfect, but everyone will definitely notice if you're late.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's kind of a blessing in disguise, is nobody really knows what you're actually going to look like on the day. So if you have got hair out of place, if you have got a shoulder strap slightly off, then nobody's going to question it because they're like, oh, maybe that's just what you wanted. It's supposed to be like that. No one's the only person who knows if something is wrong is you. Yeah. So you just kind of have to go, well, nobody else knows. It's fine. We'll make it work. You just push it aside and crack on.
Exactly.
There's a few comments that I'm gonna read out because time is getting on. Is there anything else you wanted to cover, Po, on the wedding planning?
No, just let's get out of here because I need to go to bed.
Yes, absolutely. So there's one from Philosophy Dad, great name. For any unmarried men watching, as soon as a girlfriend starts talking about jewelry styles or ring sizes, no matter how casually, they are looking for a proposal.
Yeah. I mean, a proposal is the ultimate compliment, right? It's like, even if she's not like absolutely has a mindset on marrying you, she'll still appreciate you proposing.
Yes. Did you hint at your husband? Did you pass any comments?
I wouldn't say I proposed, but I definitely suggested it.
Yeah, I definitely suggested it. I have to admit.
I said I didn't realize how much planning would have to go into it. Like, I thought we could just elope, like Gretna Green, like you could just kind of turn up, and you could do it. But so I thought we were just together one day, and I was like, we should just go elope this weekend. Like, we could get married this weekend. And then I found out, okay, well, it's got to be 3 months from now, and you got to have guests. So I guess we'll get married in 3 months then.
Yeah. And it all depends on what you want as well as a couple, what kind of wedding you want, and all that fun stuff. Yes. So to answer that one, we both hinted at our husband/future husband.
I think that's the typical way these days. Like I said about how dating has changed marriage and engagement, it's not the same as it was where you really had to wait for the man to do it because he's really, you're not giving anything away until the wedding, so he better propose if he wants to get if he wants to get the time of day from you. He better be ready to commit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was kind of funny because we both kind of hinted at the same time. So I sort of passed a comment, and then it was actually met with the same sort of attitude, which I found hilarious. And then I caught Alex out because he spent a bit too much time at my parents' house. And my mum dobbed him in because she was like, oh, yeah, we were talking about watching Strictly. And I was like, Alex hasn't been watching Strictly, so what were you actually doing? And he was actually asking my parents' permission to marry me. So I was
nice.
like, I see through everything. Like, oh,
that's classy.
we're talking about Strictly. I'm like, he doesn't watch it. Nice. I mean, I appreciate you trying to cover it up, but next time use a better excuse because that was shocking.
Yeah. No, I think asking for the parents' permission is definitely a classy move.
It is a classy move. Very classy move. I always appreciate that. That was a very classy move. And actually finding out my parents' reaction to him asking was very wholesome as well. That was very nice. Last one from English Loyalist. Before all of this, did you ever think you would ever get married?
I don't know who that was directed to, really. All this being Wamen hour?
In general, yeah. Before all of this, before being married or before wedding planning, did you ever think you were actually ever going to get married?
Yeah, I always thought I'd get married. I think that's what. I always wanted a man to love me enough that he'd want to be dedicated to me and me be dedicated to him. So that's something I've always aspired to. I didn't always want children, which is something I've talked about before. It was really only after we got married that we were like, maybe we should actually try it. But
yeah, I mean, I think I feel like it's one of those very stereotypical little girl's dreams, isn't it? She dreams of her wedding day when you're very young. I'm not saying all women have done this, but it is quite a stereotypical thing to assume, isn't it? Is that all girls dream of their wedding day. I definitely thought I would be married at some point. I will admit there was a time where I was like, no, it's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Not in terms of Alex, of course. Previously, yeah, as you do, you kind of go through stages, and it's like, is this ever going to happen, or am I just going to be a spinster?
It's funny because our families, I think, both assumed that we wouldn't get married. Or that we wouldn't get married yet, because we were both kind of like edgy and atheist and a bit like countercultural back then, a bit too kind of straightforward and like none of this nonsense and none of this romance stuff. So I think they were very surprised when we said that not only were we getting married, but we'd already got married.
Yeah, surprise.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
I think my family was a little bit surprised to find out it was me getting married before my sister. I am one of three, but I mean, my brother. Yeah, I mean, I love my brother, but I can't see him getting married. He's not really the marrying type, if that makes sense. Some people just have relationships; they're absolutely fine. They just don't get married.
Yeah.
But I think we all thought it was. I mean, even I thought it was going to be my sister before me. She is older than me. I'm the youngest of three, so I did think it was going to be my sister getting married before I did. So I think it was even a bit of a surprise to me to actually.
You're just like Lydia Bennett.
Yes, yeah, the young one gets married first.
Mm-hmm.
But it was.
I got married first, but but my brothers are. They're older than me, but they're boys, so. They're boys, I kind of thought they would get married later.
You kind of do with brothers, don't you? It's like, yeah, they'll just get married later. So it was a bit of a surprise for not just me, but for my family as well, that I was getting married first. But as I mentioned earlier, being number 24 of 25 grandchildren, we're not all married just yet, but me and my sister were kind of the next ones on the list, as it were. So my family were kind of waiting, like, yeah, they're kind of that age now, and long-term relationships and all this, so they were kind of expecting one of us, I think, to announce something at some point.
As a parent who looking, like, coming back to what I said at the start of the stream, anticipating what it's going to be like to be the parent of teenagers and young adults, I can't imagine how stressful it is every time you're being introduced to your daughter or son's new boyfriend or girlfriend, and you're like, oh god, I hope they don't marry this one, like this one sucks.
Is this going to last? Is it not?
Yeah,
because I mean, I'm sure you have the same opinion as me anyway, Poe, but I think we've spoken about it before on Women's Hour, and marriage is a very important thing. I'm not going to say I'm against divorce, but as I've mentioned before, I do not plan on doing this ever again. This is it. This is the one life decision. I'm getting married, and it does sink in occasionally. I have to admit, I'm planning. Sometimes I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm planning a wedding, and then I'm like, oh shit, I'm planning my own wedding. I have to remind myself that it is actually our wedding, which is still slightly surreal to me. I think it will only become real closer to the time. And I say that it is in October, so time is creeping up on me. It feels like it was only a few months ago that we got engaged, and it wasn't. It was 2 years ago, and it's like, Christ, where has that time gone? And it does disappear very quickly. It does come around a lot quicker than you think. Suddenly it's there.
Just quickly on the subject of divorce and second marriages, I have to admit I don't really understand. I mean, obviously in the case of like a widow or a widower, that makes sense. Like that's always been permissible socially and also religiously. But I don't quite understand someone who gets divorced and then gets remarried, because like you said your vows the first time and said it was going to be forever, and now you're just going to say it again to someone else. you know,
Yeah.
when it didn't work the first time. So why do you think it's going to work now?
Yeah, I
mean, it does work. There are people, like, I'm not saying that every person who gets divorced is just like they're doomed to unhappy life. Because it seems like that people do get it right sometimes the second time. But yeah, I still don't really understand, like, what was the point in making the vow if you weren't going to stick to that, and then also to make that same vow to someone else. I think maybe the Catholics have got they might have a point with remarriage.
Yeah, it is an awkward sort of situation, I think, because again, I know quite a few divorced people, couples, and all of them have a different story. Whether they've got married and then stayed together for the kids for a very long time, and then decided to divorce a lot later, when the kids are actually adults, and have then gone on to remarry, which in their circumstances, absolutely fine. It was a case of, they were still married, but didn't necessarily live together, but did so because of the kids, and it made things easier in terms of school and doctors, etc., things like that, paperwork, whatever. And then married later on, each partner's gone off to marry elsewhere, another person. They've both been very happy. That's great. And then in other cases, I think with marriage, anyone who is thinking about marriage or being engaged, anything like that, be careful. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Don't rush into things. Be 1,000% sure, because I think we've discussed it in Women's Hour before, that divorce has become almost easy, and I don't like the thought of divorce at all. It's stressful for everyone involved. It's not nice, and like you say, Poe, you're making a vow in front of maybe hundreds of people, or in front of God, or in front of the law as such. It is a legal document. It's not just saying yes and scribbling your name on a piece of paper. It is a legal document. You are legally changing your name. You are changing documents, even down to, it will be on the census, is an example I've used for people. If somebody looks you up in 100 years time, tracing back their family history, and they go, oh, well, this person was married to this person. I've lost Poe again. I'm sure she'll appear. But it is something that does stick with you. So you do be very careful with that, and as much as I love people when they get engaged and they're all very happy and you're happy for them, I do sometimes question if people get engaged very quickly. I do have a sense of concern about it, I have to admit. But if it's right, then it's right, And as I said, I've been engaged for over 2 years, and nothing has changed. Both very, very happy. Obviously, now we're getting married. So what can I say? I don't know if Poe's going to come back. If she isn't, thank you for joining us, Poe. You disappeared. You might still be listening. But thank you all for listening and joining us on this very rabbit hole stream. We've jumped down so many rabbit holes. Hopefully that gives you a bit of insight about the depths and black holes of wedding planning. It is stressful. There is a lot involved. Anyone has any questions regarding wedding planning, please do send us a message. We'll help you out. Otherwise, please support me on Ko-fi. People keep asking me. I do not have monetization turned on my channel because I do not have enough subscribers yet, guys. So please subscribe if you haven't already. If you do wish to send something, thank you very, very much for those who have already. And for those who wish to send something now, you can do so on Ko-fi by buying me a cuppa. It's very much appreciated. I'm a busy person. I volunteer for a lot of things. I don't get paid for them. So any support is always very, very much welcome. So thank you very much for joining. Thank you to the ladies who joined earlier, and we'll see you in the next one.